Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. My name is Felisa Gadero. I am a clinical psychologist and the Associate Director at Seattle University's Counseling and Psychological Services, otherwise known as CAPS, and we are the counseling center on campus. Today, I'm going to be talking with you about expressing emotions. So we will talk about what emotions are, the difference between emotions and feelings, the importance of expressing your emotions, and different ways that you can do that. So I want you just to take a minute and try to think for yourself, what are emotions? I've used this word throughout my life and as a clinical psychologist many times, and I've never actually really tried to define it. And when I tried to do that in my mind, I found it was very hard. And if you think back to maybe a time where you felt something strongly, or the last time you can remember feeling any sort of emotion, and going back there in your mind and then trying to capture that in words, I found it pretty difficult. So I did what anyone does when they don't know the answer to something, and I went to the internet, which maybe was the wrong thing to do, but I discovered that there are so many contradictory, complicated, very wordy definitions of emotions, because I think it's really hard to describe something that's happening inside, and words sometimes don't do a good job of that. So I looked on the internet, and after several minutes, this is how I felt, because that's what will happen on the internet when you're trying to look for a definition of emotions. So I decided to write my own. So for this presentation, I want you to think about emotions as waves, just like waves in the ocean. So energy gets transmitted through waves, and just the same way that emotions are energy also moving through you. And the energy, and when I say energy, I mean like almost like just a swelling, something that rises up inside of you. And the way that you know that that's happening is your body. Your body is going to let you know. Your heartbeat will change. Your temperature might change. Your breathing might change. Maybe you get sweaty. Maybe your stomach hurts a bit, but your body starts talking to you. And it might even get to a place where you feel like you have a lump in your throat, and there is no lump actually in your throat. Or it feels like time is standing still. Sometimes emotions can even do that. But those are examples of how emotional energy starts inside of you. And each energy, or the energy to each emotion is going to feel different. So sadness is something that can feel maybe heavy to some people. Anger is something that maybe feels kind of like big, intense energy, but is very targeted toward something or someone. And joy or excitement might also be big energy, but it's scattered. It kind of goes everywhere. So as I talk today, you can think about, oh, when I feel this way, what does that energy feel like in my body? Emotions are different to each person. So only you know what you're experiencing. And at this point, when you're experiencing emotions in your body, we haven't named them yet. There are no labels or titles for the emotions yet. They're just unique to you. And emotions are really important. They're probably the reason for everything important that humans do beyond like eating and keeping yourself warm. But emotions are, if you dig hard enough, they're really the reason for a lot of what we do. Emotions can come from anywhere, kind of like, again, waves on the ocean. The most common waves on the ocean are surface waves that are created by the wind. But waves are also generated by the gravitational pull of the sun or the moon. And then obviously those really big waves like tsunamis are made from the shifting of tectonic plates far underneath us. So in the same way, our emotional waves can come from circumstances that are around us, the way somebody interacted with us, maybe even something that happened a long time ago. But the key point is to note that emotions usually stem from something that has happened that is outside of us. Sometimes it might be hard to know what that thing is, but if we look hard enough, we can usually find that whatever is causing our emotions is outside of us. Um, and I'll note also that sometimes those forces from the outside are really big and major, but our waves are calm and there's not much movement. And sometimes maybe the outside forces seem very minor, but they cause a big emotional wave inside of us. So I say that because, again, everybody's experience of emotions is different and unique to them. So sometimes the water is choppy, sometimes it's calm, and sometimes it's so big that you don't want to go in it at all. And that's very common. One thing I'll talk about later is that we have this idea sometimes that emotions are going to be so big and so overwhelming that we'd rather just ignore them or look the other way and hope that they leave. And while emotions will dissipate, they will calm, they actually don't go away. And we'll come back to that. Emotions are unique, they're yours. And that's to say that my sadness about something is not the same as somebody else's experience of sadness. Even my sadness from different sad situations is different. So when I'm sad about something that happened to a friend, that's different from when I feel sad about maybe something that's happened to me. So just know that there's no prescribed one way of feeling something that goes across all humans, and even from situation to situation. So just a brief note here about emotions or feelings, because doing this presentation made me realize that I use the words emotions and feelings interchangeably. I don't actually make a differentiation. And then I thought, well, I wonder if there is a difference. And so again, maybe foolishly, I went back to the internet to look up the difference between emotions and feelings. And yet again, this is where I ended up. So let this be my warning to you that perhaps don't do that. But after some reading, I was able to sort out that this is basically the difference, that emotions on the left are things that you feel in your body. Your temperature changes, you sweat, you cry, maybe you don't feel anything inside, like you feel numb, the absence of feeling. Your stomach hurts, you have to pee all of a sudden. Nervous pee is a very common experience for people who maybe are just about to go on stage. And feelings are when your brain has taken all of that information from your body, the physiological things that are happening, and then given that a name. Like, oh, my heart is beating fast. I'm sweating a little bit. I have to pee all of a sudden. I must be feeling nervous. So that's when it gives you, that's when you have a label. Now, it's not so important that you figure out exactly what you're experiencing all of the time. It can be helpful because maybe what helps you when you're feeling sad is different from what helps you when you're feeling angry or embarrassed. Some people want to be alone when they're embarrassed, and some people want to be with someone else when they're sad. And then I'll also note that you could have some of the same things on the emotional side, but a very different conclusion on the feeling side. So, like I was just saying, maybe you sweat a little bit and your heart's going fast when you feel nervous, but maybe you also feel those things when you're excited. So, those are things that only you can sort out because you know what it feels like in your body. I discovered just a few years ago that I will whisper when I am either super excited or when I'm super angry. Now, those are very different feelings, but I notice, or different emotions rather, but I notice that, okay, I have to gauge, am I super angry right now or am I super excited? So you might find that you have the same physiological, emotional changes, but the feelings might be different. All right, there are many emotions, and here's an example of some of them. Um, and we all experience them in different ways. So let's take maybe some common characters that might be familiar to you, and we can go through some examples. So some of us like to talk about our emotions constantly, and you might know the phrase an external processor. And C3PO does that. He talks nonstop about how he's feeling, or what he thinks he might be feeling, or what might be coming. Some of us push down painful emotions from the past and pretend like we don't have any emotions anymore. That's not the way to go, by the way. Some of us are uncomfortable with emotions and we just use humor, or we use humor sometimes to deal with those emotions. Some of us are very grounded when it comes to emotions, and we know that emotions are important, but we also know that they're visitors, that they'll come, but they'll also go. Some of us are just traveling around the galaxy, doing our job by ourselves, when suddenly something or somebody comes along that just moves our heart. And after that, things are forever changed, all because of emotions. And some of us, even though we might not speak the same verbal language, are very good at expressing how we feel. So those are just some examples. And if anyone has no idea who these characters are, then I'll return to that when I talk about watching movies or watching shows as a way of helping you to express emotions. All right, so why is this important? Why is any of this important? Because a lot of people just feel like, well, emotions and feelings are annoying and I don't want to deal with them. So just like in the ocean, energy is meant to travel. And if left alone, the energy in the ocean will travel across the entire ocean basin. It'll stop once it hits the shore or an island or a reef. But if you just let it go, it'll go. But if something stops energy from traveling, then you'll get this buildup of emotions inside of you. And like I said earlier, emotions do not go away, they are there. And if you do so much holding in of your emotions, then eventually they will either leak or explode, probably with people and in circumstances that you did not intend. And that can be further emotionally distressing. So it's important to let that energy travel through and leave you, so that it's not building up and creating a lot of pressure inside of you. Physical and mental stress can result as emotions build up inside. People can experience higher blood pressure, migraine headaches, feeling depressed or anxious, or have a hard time concentrating. It can even interfere with relationships. And so, if you're holding in emotions and then accidentally other emotions come out when you don't mean them to, that can impact your friendships and your relationships with other people. And it can make it hard to be present with whoever you're in connection with. And I should note, if you hold back emotions that really need to come out, it's not just that one emotion that is going to explode or leak when eventually things go. It's going to be at that plus every emotion that you've piled on top of it. So this might be making you wonder, do I have to let out every single emotion that I feel? And no, you don't. Like the ocean, that's always moving. You're always breathing. And that is also a way of energy coming out of you. And so, maybe I feel, slightly irritated um, at something that happened. And do I need to take 10 minutes to just really focus and process on that irritation? Probably not. And just by me breathing out and maybe thinking, oh, that was irritating, maybe that's enough and that's fine. So I want to note that it's not that you have to be expressing emotions, every single one, in a very purposeful, intentional way, because just by you breathing and going about your day, saying comments either to yourself or others, emotions get expressed that way, on a more mild level. All right, so let's talk about some different ways now that you can express emotions, because there are many. So one is movement. Maybe you just go outside and fly where the wind takes you. Maybe you're someone that has some theater experience and you want to act out how you feel, with a lot of movement. Maybe you just need to get your body moving and you want to do some jumping jacks or wiggle your arms. Any movement counts. This doesn't need to be, I went and exercised for this amount of time with these types of things. You can go wiggle, you can dance it out, you can just run around and see how you feel. I know some folks, when I used to work with kids, who would draw or who would make alphabet letters in the shapes of their bodies. So just any movement is going to be helpful. Writing, you can go write on a beach, you can go write in a book, and it doesn't need to be a very long journal entry. If you're used to journaling and that's helpful for you, go for it. But you can also draw emojis. You can write phrases down. You can write a limerick or some other poem. But again, just getting some of this energy out is the purpose. So you can do that in whatever way. You'll notice that I am including some pictures of nature and animals. And one, that's to help you feel maybe a little bit different from your normal, maybe Zoom typical meetings where it's maybe a lot of intellectual words. And I purposefully did pictures, because even just looking at pictures that you think are nice to look at, or even create a sense of awe in you, that is another way of getting emotions out. So we're doing it right now. Talk to a friend. Go find a lovely place to be and sit with someone, or be with someone, or call someone that you trust, someone who is going to be a non-judgmental, listening source of support. It could be a therapist, it could be you, it could be a friend, it could be just another trusted person, it could be a stuffed animal in your room. But talking it out is another way of expressing emotions. Doing art is another way. This is an artist named Andy Goldsworthy, who does a lot of art in nature and whose work I love. Even just Googling images of his work, I promise will give you a sense of awe. So you can glue stuff, cut it out. You can cut out words that feel like they describe what you are feeling inside, and you can glue them to something else and make something big. You can find the colors of what you feel like match your feelings and your emotions, and you can put them all together. But this is another way of creating an outlet for emotional expression. Music. Music has been found to really activate the brain in very cool ways. It can be healing for people who've experienced trauma. It can help you to be more creative. And it can often just tap into an experience for you, in a way that sometimes words or reading, or even talking cannot. So music is really powerful. And I read this quote that said, music will either make you forget everything or remember everything, which I think is really, really true about music. Stories. So I said this earlier, sometimes a way of expressing emotions or connecting with what you're feeling is to watch or to read others' stories. And I will admit I have not watched My Octopus Teacher, but a lot of people have, and they say that it's great and that it was um, very heartfelt. And so this is just an example, but stories help us to connect with others' emotions. And sometimes, if we're feeling like our own emotional waves are too big or too scary, this is one step removed. This is a way of maybe just getting the energy out without maybe diving into what might feel scary with your own emotions to start. So this can be a nice jumping off point. Um, Star Wars characters was what I showed earlier. Um, Now, that is an extremely large amount of TVs and movies, but whatever works for you is whatever works for you. There's some great characters in there, um, and it would be hard not to have any emotional reaction to the story. As I mentioned earlier, emotions start as physiological changes in your body, and so you'll notice when you are feeling something. Maybe your arms are crossed, or your head is on the pillow, or you're frowning, or you're jumping with joy, or you're so surprised that your mouth is hanging open. And if that's your body's way of already starting to express the emotion, so just let it keep going. If you're crying, that's okay. Keep crying. Um, and if you need to ponder and think for a while as the emotions sort themselves out and you figure out what you're feeling, great. That's great too. But know that your body has already instinctively started the process of expressing the emotion. And one I didn't mention earlier is that people often even just wear things that are descriptive of how they feel emotionally, whether it's color or a pattern or their hair is done in a certain way. There's all sorts of ways to do that, but color and clothes and accessories are another way to do that. So just some last bits here as I'm wrapping up. Like I said before, if you don't know what you're feeling, that's fine. We just want the energy to get out because it will become harder to carry, like it is with anything, as time goes on if it doesn't get out, and it will feel more scary. So it's okay if you don't know if it's excitement or nervousness or anxiety or feeling depressed. It's okay. Just try some of these strategies if you know something's inside of you, and give your body a chance to just let some of the air out. I recommend trying several of the strategies because, like I said before, if you're feeling maybe jealous, you'll probably need something different than if you're feeling joyful. So knowing what strategies work for you and in what situation is good and will be helpful to you. And you can combine them. You can listen to music while you make a giant collage of animal faces about how you feel, right? You can put them all together. Um, Oftentimes people focus a lot on the emotional or the feeling words, I should say, like, am I feeling sad? Am I feeling upset? And I want to recommend that you don't forget the story. Don't forget the context in which these emotions happen, because that's really important. Like I said, it's different if I'm feeling upset about, um, maybe that my car broke down instead of I'm feeling upset because I spilled something. Those are two different things. And the story matters. So share the story as you're expressing your emotions and feelings. Riding the wave is probably a phrase that most folks are familiar with. So this is that idea that if you can sort of go with how you're feeling, go with the flow of the situation, and not fight it so much, not try to turn away or ignore what's happening, that eventually the energy will dissipate and slow, and it will. Um, Emotions don't stick around forever at a very high level. It is important still that they get expressed, but it doesn't mean that you'll be in the ocean with gigantic waves forever, which is what oftentimes people are concerned about. So bending your knees and holding on a bit, as the wave rides itself out, can be a great way of also remembering how to deal with emotions that might feel maybe particularly scary or intense or overwhelming. Nighttime is emotion time. So you may know for yourself that you'll go throughout your day and things will be feeling fine. And then you are trying to go to sleep, and somehow every single worry and stress, things you haven't thought about in a long time, maybe, are just popping up like bubbles everywhere, and you can't get to sleep. That's a very common experience, and is typically because you don't have the events of the day to distract you, because you're trying to quiet your mind and body as you go into rest, as you go into resting. Uh, so it might be good to use one of these strategies, maybe earlier in the evening, maybe an hour or so, or even just at any point in the day, just to like turn the faucet on and let some of the energy out. And that way, it's less likely to bubble up when you are trying to get your very important sleep. And then finally, and I mentioned breathing before, but you, just like the ocean, are breathing in and out. And so that's already emotional expression, meaning energy that's coming out of you. Um, this is just more of, oh, okay, I'm breathing, great. That's fine for maybe most of what I feel during the day. But oh, this particular experience or interaction with someone is sticking with me, and I can tell that I feel something. And that's when we want to, um, when it's good to turn towards some other outlets, like I mentioned, writing or listening to music, or moving yourself around, to help that bigger swell of energy move through you. All right. And then lastly, again, Andy Goldsworthy, I found this very cool image of art that he did around a tree. And it's just all colorful leaves placed strategically, but the way that he did it, to me, really showed like that the tree has got energy and it's coming out. So I thought it was a nice way to, a nice image to leave you with. So that's what I've got for today. I hope that some of the information was helpful, and happy riding the wave.